Hi, folks. Welcome to AsyncAPI community meeting. Welcome to the first meeting after the New Year's Eve, like first meeting in 2022. I'm Łukasz, host of the meeting. Please be informed that we record this meeting, so whoever joined and how to say it, like, I mean, if it's a problem for you, then just don't turn on your cameras and just write in the chat maybe. But yeah, we have to make this meeting transparent to others and record it. So that's the reason why we record. Before we usually start different topics from the agenda, it's also a time for people that joined for the first time to the meeting to introduce themselves if you want to do it. So if there's anyone who'd like to say something before we kick off, then please, that's the right moment.
Hi, I'm Rafael from a company called Up9. I came here to learn how to create, consume, work with AsyncAPI. Part of our open source project is Mizu, which show traffic of a lot of AsyncAPI's protocols. So thank you for having me, and thanks for the great work on AsyncAPI. The community is amazing, based on the Slack as well.
Welcome, and thank you for good words, kind words. Welcome. You kicked off the year very well by joining us. Okay, so I guess we can start then with the first topic, and it's gonna be a topic from excuse me, how do you say it in English? It's not trauma. It's like when I'm shy. How do you say it when I'm shy to run the meeting? How do you say Dale in English?
A bit nervous, maybe?
Nervous, like, is it? Yeah, maybe. So whatever.
It's fine.
I actually have problems with my throat. But yeah, anyway, let's talk about the one of the issues raised a few months ago by Shekhar from eBay. It's about a request for change in the spec about the security, to enable security on the operation level, to not only have security on the server level. So will you present? Do you need me to share a screen? Okay, awesome. So
no, I'll just talk through. It's a very straightforward use case. So today, when we define operations or channels, the asynchronous API currently does not support security constraints, but security can only be defined at the server level. So our proposal was straightforward. It's to introduce security also at the operational level, because for an mutually interacting system, mostly it will be the components and the operations that other components will be interacting with, not necessarily directly with the broker. Now the question, now that was approved, and Lucas was helping me with it, and I'm very grateful. The part where I wanted to discuss or get all of your opinions is that, well, now that we have security at both the operation level and at the broker level, at the server level, it seems like initially the way I had it was that the operation, if we have to define a relation between the security constraints as they apply to the operation and as they apply to the server, it seems kind of intuitive that yes, whatever you specify at the operation level will override whatever internal settings, security settings you may have at the broker level. And that's how I had it. And then I removed it. and here's why. That yes, in most topologies, that would be the case. You'd be only interacting with a set with events or event topics through operations. Yeah, and most of the interactions with streams, consuming or producing or writing to a stream would be defined by the operations, produce and subscribe operations on the thing. But there could be topologies where your broker itself is externalized for some reason. Now, yes, functionally, Yes, for the most part, 99% of the cases, I can imagine a case where you would be interacting directly with the broker for whatever reason with the server and not really through operations defined on the topology. But I was wondering whether we should call it out in the specs and sort of have the specs itself impose a constraint that the operation level security will always override server level settings, or leave it to the implementation. That was the question. I hope I've stated the problem okay.
So I unfortunately, as I mentioned, it's my first day, so I did not have time yet to look into this discussion, but I at least noticed that Sergio, you had some you were commenting. So anything from your side?
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I kind of understand why you move it out. But at the same time, I try to put the skin of someone that wants to define their API. And I think this should be included in the spec. And the reason is that, like, if we don't include in the spec and we leave it up to the implementation, so how can we ensure all implementations follow the same principles, right? So
yeah, because technically they wouldn't necessarily be a subset of each other. Like, for example, if you have OAuth scopes A, B, and C defined at the operation level, the broker may have very internal to the topology scopes of X, Y, and Z. Now, the operations, when they interact with the broker, which is not externally exposed, could be using XYZ scope to interact with the server, but however, ABC. So essentially what I mean is that the scopes that you specify in the operation levels are not necessarily, or at the server level, are not necessarily a direct subset, but functionally they are a different set. But however, just in my example that I was giving, this could be internal scopes, and on the operation level, maybe you have externalized scopes which other components can interact with. So from that point of view, yes, I'm okay with putting it back, by the way. I had it and then I hesitated, and then I removed it. I tried to shield it with a ideally, which Lucas did like. Yeah, I'm okay with putting it back if that's the consensus.
I mean, I don't think you are wrong or I'm right. You know, it's like, in fact, it makes sense what you are suggesting, because it depends on the implementation. That's right. You could, not in the implementation, but in the use case,
Yes.
rather than the implementation.
Yes.
So I can understand that you might want to like reuse some from the server or separate from the server whatever you're using in the server. It doesn't have to be the same as in the operation, or the other way around. But I still think, like, if we set something in stone, it will be easier for users to understand what's the meaning of this new security under operation.
Yeah, Jonas, to answer your question, we did add the security to operation trait as well.
Because the question was more in the terms of, we are having a discussion about, I think it's message traits, if I'm not mistaken, where there's a discussion whether traits should have different merging behavior, or whether how that should work. And I just wondered whether that applies to the operation level as well, whether that could be, what's it called? So still from a standard or default perspective, if you define any security things under operation, it just overrides whatever is defined elsewhere, where and I don't know, because then it's all it's related to the servers.
I mean, okay, so I'm okay with calling it out if that if all of you folks advise on that. In fact, I had it and I removed it. But yes, if the consensus is put it back, and I was for it, because that's why I had it in the first place. But then I was thinking of all these different potential topologies, and I hesitated. I was wondering whether the specification should dictate how the security should be set up. It's a guideline, but certainly not. Because see, look, specification is enforced. We'll have linters, we'll have other validations, we'll have to make sure that, and there's no way to validate this either. I mean, even if we put that in, how would you enforce it? How would you know that XYZ at the server level security is sort of like an internal and overridden by ABC in the operation? Implementation could very well do it differently. They will not. I mean, it's very highly unlikely that anybody would do that, but I'm just saying whether we should put in things that we cannot validate.
I just want to add, so again, I want to emphasize that it's not a really, I mean, it's a really good point. And did you find any use case where security at server level makes sense to be kept at the same time you have security at operation level, like both? I don't know if you already talked about it. I didn't.
Yeah, so I can explain that. So my thoughts were that, see, AsyncAPI serves two purposes. For us, for eBay, we are using asynchronous API purely for HTTP push notifications, just to call out our message payload and our semantic. But however, think of evolving topology. Let's say we are collaborating on a design and we have these evolving system. It's still work in progress. So we have the server set up. We'll be introducing different event topics into that ecosystem. And at this point, anybody collaborating on this design or this topology needs to have all these finer details. Yeah, typically for an externalized topology, unless a broker is externally exposed, which is rarely ever the case. In fact, I don't know any of such cases where the broker itself is exposed to external integrators. But for internal collaboration purposes, every component of the system needs to be called out. Yeah. And so the server security constraints are totally required. Anybody trying to understand or introducing a new topic, for example, a new event stream into the system would need to know about the broker, any security constraints that the broker would need for introducing this event or writing an operations around it. But, and also they would, I totally agree with you that they would, in fact, that's why I had it. But I was just wondering whether the specification should try to call out something that's potentially, I mean, again, I can't imagine a real functional production use case where people are interacting directly with the broker instead of a stream of the channel or operation. But however, for evolving work in progress topologies, both need to be specified to any integrator. I mean, to any developer, any collaborator.
I mean, now, to be honest, I'm more into the, sorry, Lucas.
Just wanted to add like that AsyncAPI is not just brokers, right? So there might be other use cases for AsyncAPI like WebSockets. So it's not just because I hear that you mentioned brokers, that they're not exposed. But yeah, we know that there are other use cases for AsyncAPI other than just brokers in event-driven architectures. Plus, I mean, like, for example, when I was commenting on your PR to have it, this information about like what's priority, it's because like, it's just basing on my experience of how people want spec to be precise. And from like last 2 years, I learned people want spec to be like super precise because they then build tools on top of it. So they don't want to have anything open for interpretation. They want to be, yeah, they want spec to answer all the questions for them. So that's, and I guess that's the same reason for Sergio to act here in the PR. But my question is, because your example and your pull request is purely focused on OAuth. I'm now just wondering, like, because now we on operation level, we would enable any kind of security because we just allow you to specify any
Yes, it could be
security.
different. It could be that internally you're when the operations or the components connect with the broker, they use a completely different security mechanism than at the operation. So there's no implied relation. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because one could be OAuth, maybe the operations are exposed as OAuth, but the the server uses something completely different. So functionally, they would most likely be overridden by operation level when both exist for the same event. And it is the specification is indeed structured to make everything a function of the channel or the event. So in that sense, it makes sense to mention that if both are available, then the operation overrides server level security, because that's kind of internal, because you're interacting with the stream, you're interacting with the operation. You don't really need to know about the server in those cases. But in other scenarios, you do need to know about the server. But I'm okay either way. I'm totally open. However, for you folks recommend that I reword it, I will reword it.
Funny thing is that now, right now, I'm not sure about my own words. You know, like I'm not really sure if I would put that in the spec.
Yeah.
And
So
I told you like
that's
10 minutes ago, so you hacked my mind. Congratulations.
Yeah, and so that's what I mean. I had it, and then I started hesitating, and then I panicked and removed it because I was wondering if you're getting into areas which is a little outside the scope of any specification.
Yeah, I see as a complementary, but it's not even related.
It's complementary,
That's right.
but it's not directly spec.
So could we say that server security is completely different from operation security? Like
Could be.
we are not defining even nothing close to the same thing. Like
Yeah, so if you
server
leave
security.
it blank, it's sort of left to the implementers, and they would of course go through their own information security audits and reviews and all that for most companies, and they would figure this out.
My question goes into, and yeah, does like current users assume that whenever you define something, it's like whenever you define security at server level, do they assume that that applies to operations or only to connect to servers, which is like a combination of what's the difference, right? But I don't know if I can explain myself, but I think this is your thought. Like the security at server level is for connecting to the server, but to connect to where? To the channel, to interact with the channel, or just to interact with the server through
Interact with
other
the server.
mechanisms?
Yeah, so if the operation level is not specified and server is only specified, as is the case today, I'm not sure how folks interpret it, but in our case, it was different. We didn't even have, ours was purely a subscription facing HTTP push notification use case. So we didn't even have a server in our schema. So for us, there was no conflict, but I was wondering, in case both only server level security is present, is it right to assume that operations would inherit that? I don't think, purely because typically in most setups, at least the ones that I've seen, these servers tend to, and I mean, I'm thinking of servers more as even brokers. These brokers tend to have very internal facing authorization scopes with the operations are aware of, and they use it to interact with it. But when the operations themselves are exposed for outside integration, they use a completely different externalized scopes, which other people can use. And it's only applicable to the operation level. So you could have 3 operations and each of them maintaining the granularity. Maybe operation A is accessible to scope A dash, operation B is accessible to scope B dash, but all of them use scope X to talk to the broker internally.
I see there's alternative discussion happening also in the chat. Do you want guys to jump in, or should I read the content?
Jump in. So it was just a suggestion that we have this example with the social media system, which has both a REST interface and it has WebSockets and whatnot and broker systems that all are defined with async API. So if we try to apply the changes for the operations and how security are defined there, maybe it makes more sense or gives more sense how everything works together. Just a suggestion.
But like, what security was used there in this social media example? Was there some?
Nothing. So you have to, of course, like, think of the reason why you would have XYZ security. So if you apply security for, let's say you add some kind of security measurement for the WebSocket server, how is that applied if you do it on the operation level? If that makes sense.
Yeah, but then you mean all the different possible security solutions? You mean?
No, just one. Just pick one. See how it works together. Like in which cases is it constraining and where does it not fit? Like these changes. Because that's basically all the discussion about right now, right? It's where does this apply and what's the constraint and how far to take it, basically.
Yeah, and if I may, WebSockets is one of these cases, but async API is so generic as a specification. There's always this fear of getting locked into a specific pattern and thereby limiting the generic nature of the specification. And that was the other reason I was a little hesitant, honestly, whether by calling out relationships, which may or may not apply to all use cases. I'm not even familiar with all of the use cases, but I was just wondering whether we would be constraining ourselves or limiting the specification itself by calling out constraints, which probably we shouldn't get into. I mean, yeah, I just explained my hesitation, so I'm keep going back to that. But yeah,
I mean, it's a perfectly good question, right? Because it's also a question of whether the security, like if it's only for Kafka, for example, or whatever
yes.
the protocol is, should it reside in the bindings rather than being implemented in the specification, right? That's also like a question that has to be answered. I'm not saying that it should be either way. I just said it's just a question to consider.
Hale, you can speak if you want.
The discussion in the chat was sort of because Kafka, as an example, you can specify the security requirements like ACLs for different topics. You know, maybe your credentials can access this topic, but not that topic. But we don't put the credentials in the async API specs. I'm not sure that helps us. What we're talking about is, would you want to access one topic with one security mechanism and a different topic with a different security mechanism? And that seems unusual.
Because depending on the event type, you could potentially have different granular scopes. Like just to give the regular example of the pet shop, which is read and write. Well, read and write is probably an incorrect example, but let's say there is a operation that allows you to access or rather deal with the event stream that has PII information about the pets. Yeah. So in that case, it may have a more rigid control on security than something which is just get the name of the pet maybe. So depending on the nature of data flowing through these events, you may have different security requirements protecting the information flowing through these events. And then the specification does leave it open.
I mean, I think we don't have at the moment a way of describing what you're talking about. Like, sort of, there isn't really that idea of a level of security requirement.
No, but we should think of it. The reason I say that is because, see, all operations are, let me put it this way, all event streams may not be controlled by one central scope. Like you can have, for example, let's say you're a banking operation, and there are simple things to get ads maybe for your banks, and there are other event topics for critical account information changes, which may still be okay, but there are other events which actually have to do with users' personal information. You can't have all of them for integrators, external integrators, exposed to a common scheme which everybody has. I mean, common security scope that everybody has. Then everybody would have access to all parts of the information. So different events can potentially be protected by different scope requirements.
Yeah, so what I was saying is that when we talk about Kafka, that concept of a scope isn't something we have a way to describe in AsyncAPI.
Yes, yes, yes.
I guess it's somewhat related as well to how OpenAPI is doing it, right? Because there you can specify it on the specific operation path as well. And I guess that is the granularity that you kind of want to have, right?
Yes, that was one of the intentions behind the PR.
Yeah.
So you are, Jonas, well, we are here like kind of suggesting this might only apply to some bindings, right?
Maybe.
To some
That's
protocols,
the thing, right?
sorry.
Yeah. So maybe it makes sense if you try applying how it, like what the feature is now, try to apply that to different scenarios. And the example project was just a quick and easy way to try and do it.
One scenario would be good to include is, how would you explicitly say you don't want security for a particular channel? Because what, or like, you know, or even for an operation, like maybe you say security is required to send a message to this topic, but there's no security needed to receive a message from that topic. You know, it's public read, but secured send. So like what I mean is, when we look at writing the examples, how do we interpret the absence of security on an operation?
Well, wouldn't it be that if you don't have security defined at the operation level, it means there are no additional constraints. But however, if you do have explicit security mentioned at the operation level, I was wondering if that would help, because you can, it's an optional entity. It's not a required entity.
So then coming back to the start of this conversation, it's like we should not assume server security or like schemas at this server security field to apply to channels operations, right? So because by definition, I pasted in the chat, it mentions operation somehow, like only one of the security requirement objects need to be satisfied to authorize a connection or operation. But I don't think operation here means channel operation. It's like an abstract.
Yeah, that
too
was
abstract.
my understanding as well. I mean, as a reader of the specification, when we first started exploring it, that's how we read it. We didn't correlate it with the operation. It's just operation on the server. That's how we took it.
So I'm not sure if this, because depending on how you present this, could be a breaking change or not. If people really think security at server level also can apply to operations, because somehow it does, I guess. this could be
it indirectly does, because, well, I guess at least the operation that's interacting with the broker needs to have the security mechanisms necessary to interact with it. So indirectly, it does apply, yes, even today.
I think we should like clarify this in documentation. So prior to that, of course, like discuss and get to an agreement with more people, I think, in the issue or somewhere, just to get with some statement that clarifies this. Because otherwise I would see this like very confusing from my point of view. That's my opinion.
Could we treat this as non-breaking in the sense that for topologies where they've designed their topologies to specify security schemas and apply it only to the server level, and they assume that it propagates to the operations automatically, and they don't need the case of this granular controls as we require it, their use cases still remain unchanged. So in that sense, they don't have any operational constraints at the well, I don't know. Yeah.
The point is that they don't have it because they don't have it. You know, like they cannot declare it right now, but maybe they are using servers for justice.
Is there a way we could reach out for community feedback, or like at least for the folks who are using it? Because a lot of folks may have just specified it at the server level because they don't have an option of specifying it at the operation level, but they'd like to have it at the operation level, perhaps more to do with the event stream rather than the server.
I mean, option to to reach community and reiterate again, it's definitely fine, but just we need to take into account that it's not something that we can get in just a few hours or few days. If it comes to the feedback.
Is it an option to not specify this constraint and then maybe have a minor release with that constraint added to our specification, that this overrides that? Or inherits, operations inherit from server. I don't know if folks really should be treating in that way, because a server level security constraint is a contract between the different, in a microservices world, in different microservices that are components that are interacting with. Now the component concept itself is being thought through, I understand that. But today, since we don't have these, the concept of a component, it's mostly operations. It's just operations and the server. I mean, it could be I was just trying to see if you could sort of, if you have a middle ground there, you could still push forward with it, be non-committal to this relationship between the two, and then add it as an amendment.
Wouldn't be then a breaking change if we add this constraint later, because people will start using it.
Yeah, so that way, I mean, the safest would be, and that was serious. That was my exact concern, why I backed away from my own original, what I put. So if you just leave it to the implementations and not really get into that, you could avoid this, because there's no way we can solve it. And because we can take opinions, but we'll never take opinions from all the, I'm sure this specification is catching on so fast. We'd probably talk to a few big ones, but that I reach out to the community, not many people respond, and we could still be introducing something breaking. But if you left it sort of, we shied away from it, avoided, skirted this issue altogether, if that's an option.
Just gonna leave a comment on the pull request with feedback after the meeting. Yeah, just to continue there.
Just a comment on
relaxing the changes, relaxing the constraints now, and then later adding more constraints. I have the feeling that if we want to be safe, I will say that the safest option that we have here is that we choose the most constrained option first for now, and then we might relax it in a future version. It's still somehow breaking change, can be, but I think it's going to affect less people than the other way around, like, right? So for instance, if we start relaxing constraints and then adding constraints, this for sure is going to be a breaking change.
And Fran, if I may, we are also putting a line there saying that if both are specified, now for all existing contracts, only one would be specified, only server level, and whatever semantics or assumptions still hold good. But if both are specified, and that will only be with this release, then is when this. So in that sense, it's not a backward incompatible change. People who already have existing contracts, they don't even have operation level security. So whatever they have, they have. And that's fine, non-conflicting.
Yeah, it's not about the documents that people have from until now, right? It's the contracts that people will have from now on, from this release on, like 2.3, right? And then people start using it in both, in servers and in operations, and then suddenly we change this and make it more restricted. Then it's a breaking change, right? It's true that it will be only, it's January, next release it will be April, but who knows? I mean, it will be breaking people who implemented this from January to April. But
so how about we go more restrictive, and then how about we, well, I'm just trying to see if there's a path to get it out without delaying this. How about if we go with additional constraints, and if people complain, remove the constraint? It won't be enforced anyway.
I will do that. Actually, to be honest, like in my perception of this feature was that it was an override to what was declared on the servers.
Yes.
So it was overriding. I mean, it was merging, let's say, not overriding, right? It was merging if you had, let's say, the same security mechanism, or if you have, let's say, you have two different security mechanisms in the server, and then you have one which is completely different on the operation, then you have three to access this operation, to perform this operation. You have three options, but it seems not. It seems it's like a different set altogether, right? So it invalidates the ones on the server.
But you're right in the sense that operation level would typically override, because folks would mostly be interacting with event streams, not necessarily, unless you're introducing a new event stream yourself, you would probably not be interacting so much with the broker or broker level security. But if, say, from an external consumer standpoint, subscriber standpoint, or a producer standpoint, you'd mostly be interacting with the operations through which you can produce or consume from that event stream. So specifying that operation, and that was my thought when I originally had put that the security specifications at the operation level override that of this thing, because what I meant by that was not necessarily override, but I meant that, I mean, if you have security at the operation level, that's all you have to deal with from an integrator standpoint. You don't need to even care about because that's a contract between the operation and the broker to what security mechanism applies internally.
But my point is that you see, it's open for interpretation, right? So I
it
differently, right? So what happens here is that whatever we decide, I think it should be clearly defined and not left for interpretation. Because let's see it from the other point of view, like the point of view of the user, right? So the user is using our tools, let's say the parser or whatever tools that we offer, and suddenly they want to change the tools and use some community contributed tool. They want things to behave the same way, right? We don't want to leave this
open to interpretation for the tooling, for the implementation, or for the tooling vendor, or call it whatever you want. Because then you replace one tool with another, and suddenly you get a different result, right? When it's tooled, right? But and I mean, you have, I'm talking about two tools, two different tools that respect the spec 100%, of course. If one of them is not respecting the spec, then we can't do anything, right? To prevent that. So we want to, I think we should aim for making it clear, making it super clear what it is about, and restricted, not restricted, is like clearly defined and not open for interpretation, right? Because in this case, we're gonna face more issues, in my opinion. So yeah, and I don't know, and maybe we're trying to rush things out for this release. I mean, I don't want to be the party pooper here now, but it seems that it's January, it's mid-January almost, and we're still not clear on that point. So maybe it's worth postponing to the next release. I know it's a pain because you've been doing a lot of, I mean, you've been waiting a lot on that feature. People really had time to give you feedback, and we all had time to give you feedback, and we didn't. So it's actually not your fault. But I have the feeling that now that that is getting more attention, we're still not clear on how it will be done, right? So maybe, I don't know, like Lucas said, like if we ask the community, it's not going to happen in a few days or weeks, right? And even if it happens, we probably in 2 weeks it's going to be February already, right? So yeah.
We can defer this. I agree.
Yeah.
Maybe perhaps do we need another discussion, or we can discuss on the PR itself? But yeah, I guess. Sorry, that was my kid.
It's fine.
What do we do it that way? Do we need another discussion like we are having now? I thought this discussion was great because we explored all the points, and yeah, I think we need to spend a little more thought on it, on exactly how to get this right. It's very tricky.
Yeah.
But should we have another discussion? Because I might, given that I don't have visibility into the broader aspects of the specification, we just started playing with it last year. So I could be missing things, but I would look to all your guidance and we can take it out of the current release if that's the best way. And I mean, I want it in the current release, but yeah, I get the reasons.
I get it. I mean, I'm not saying we should take it out. I'm just saying that let's just work on it like without the pressure of the release, right? And then if we arrive on time, cool, it's there. It will get there. If otherwise, it will get to the next one, which is in April. It's actually not far. So, so yeah. I don't know. I have the feeling that probably we're rushing things out here. Now we haven't been rushing out since the beginning, right? And to make it fit for the release, but yeah, I don't know. Let's not forget that whatever change we do to the spec is gonna be there forever. So and we'll have to maintain it forever. So I mean forever, you know, for a long time. So yeah, let's try not to.
So what would be the next
our
step?
feet, right?
Do we reach out to the community for more feedback? What do we do?
I mean,
sorry, this is my first meeting.
Open to suggestions, but I myself, I'm gonna try to give it more visibility on Twitter as well, on the Slack, and try to get more feedback. Happy if needed to run a few more meetings if needed, like this one, but for, you know, not to take decisions, but to gather more feedback. Yeah, happy to give it more visibility to see if myself, and then of course from AsyncAPI account as well, we can give it more visibility. So yeah.
And anyway, we're gonna use our official social media channels to promote it again, this proposal. And I, like a few months ago, I dropped an email to JJ from PayPal, because I remember from the community discussions that actually, like, since I'm here in the project, it was the only time when somebody talked about security on the operation level. It was an architect from PayPal, and I mailed him to ask him to have a look on the proposal. He was interested, but yeah, he was overloaded and like he couldn't even come to present at AsyncAPI conference. But I can try to reach out to him again. The good thing, if we don't push it now, is that next week a dedicated 3.0 meeting starts that Jonas organizes with the community about the work for the AsyncAPI 3.0. So it would be a platform where this could be also regularly discussed, and some action points could be assigned. So that's a so for like me personally, I would be, if not the meetings from Jonas and the efforts that I see now towards April 3.0 release, I would say we should not wait. But yeah, this meeting and more effort that we put into the 3.0 release, this might get more attention from the community, and there's therefore a chance to get more feedback from folks.
Also, let me also remind all of you that we have this tweet together thingy. So you can use AsyncAPI Twitter to tweet, right? Just by creating an issue. So it will be a pull request, sorry. So it will be automatically tweeted. So so you don't have to wait for any one of us to tweet it, right? You can do it yourself.
Yeah, and if I can summarize it, the only thing we need community feedback for is not necessarily the concept of having operations, security at the operation level, but the rules that apply when both are specified. Only in that scenario. Okay.
Yeah, I would say this plus a few use cases, like Jonas was saying. It will be great to explore a few use cases and see how this feature behaves, right? Like, I mean, not necessarily this social media example, which can be, but another one can be, I don't know, like we have in microservices architecture, say using Kafka, and one of the topics is shared with an external company, and therefore with a partner, not with the public, right? So therefore, this needs to be protected a little bit more. That's one way. The other way is another example could be what Dale said, like we want to protect sending but not subscribing, right? Receiving messages, so we can subscribe to this topic, but and it's public, it's open, but we don't want to enforce publishing. I don't know. And if you have any, I mean, and you have your specific use case at eBay, maybe you can document a similar example. It doesn't have to be exactly yours, but to mimic your needs and see how it behaves, right? And I don't know. I think we have 2 or 3 examples so far. Yeah. Out of my mind right now.
I
Yeah,
wanted
so
to add something there. Oh, sorry. I need to write my hat. Okay, done. I just wanted to, so maybe it's something purely subjective, or I don't know if that word exists, but what I think we have to clarify It's how people is using the current security field at server level. Because if we don't clarify this, if we don't get the real use case, it's quite related with what you were saying, Fran and Jonas, the rest. If we don't clarify this, we won't be able to determine if we should somehow merge those security constraints, or rather treat them as a separate set or whatever, right? If people is using, for example, the security on the server for specifying things related to the channels only, or to both, how would people will differentiate between one or the other, right? How would they know? Your turn.
So I'm not sure we should be clarifying this. I mean, we can clarify, but my question here is actually like, what question do you want to clarify? Like with the current behavior, like for instance, we know we have security mechanisms on the server level, and those are applied to operations as well, because yeah, you don't have any other place to define it. So they are, I mean, it is by definition, like if you want to access somehow the broker to publish or to send a subscribe message that you want to subscribe to a specific topic or whatever, you need to satisfy these security mechanisms, one of them, right? So therefore, to publish or to subscribe to a specific topic right now, to a specific channel, you need to respect this these security mechanisms, one of them. So it is inherited right now, right? In practice, it is inherited. So if we change it, in a way that it's merged or is a different set or something like that, it's fine, because people, what I can foresee people doing here is you put the generic, the common security mechanisms on the server, and for those specific channels that are special, then you define which ones do you want to accept. But and therefore there will be like the specifics, and servers will be the default, right? It will become like a default for the generic for the majority or for the rest of the channels, right? That's how I foresee it behaving, right? Like if we did like this, if we have I don't know, like a different the same security mechanism on the server and on the operation with different configuration, but the same security mechanism, I can also understand and foresee that people will see it as you're overwriting, right? You're overwriting the existing one, the one on the server. Many people will think like that. I did, and many people will also think like, oh, I wasn't. And if we do it like this, because we think that many people are going to think like this, then we have the other problem. The other people thinking that, no, I thought it was a different set altogether, right? So yeah, but in my opinion, like what we had so far, I think it's clear. I mean, I don't know, I might be wrong, but what you define on the server applies to the whole document, right? To all the channels. It's inherited by nature, right? That's the only way you have to connect to. I mean, to perform an operation on the broker or on the server, you first need to connect, right? So therefore you need to satisfy the security mechanism, right?
Yeah, so both are valid. It's just that how we phrase it such that it's clear to, I'm sorry. Please, don't do that.
That one got
Okay, all right.
white.
Okay, I'm good.
That one got white.
Sorry, his screen went white. Yeah, so oh boy, I'm so sorry. But yeah, I guess we can.
No, it's not, baby.
Will you please be quiet for a second? Yeah, so maybe we can reassemble once more. I'll also put some thoughts. He's not laughing there. Oh God.
I don't know about you. I think it's a very important feedback. From
Yes,
the
it's
next
very
generation.
important.
Very-
He's like, I don't like it. Okay, here. Okay,
Why they don't want to release it?
I
Yeah,
was
he's
about to
3
say
years
like,
old.
no, daddy, don't release it like this.
Yeah, actually, yeah, he'll be 3 in February. Yeah, so yeah, it's sort of at the age where it's really hard to explain things to him. But yeah, but yeah, so we reach out for community feedback and then we trade notes on the PR. That's the way forward. Maybe we have another SIG in 2 weeks or so. Would that be reasonable? Maybe we'll get some feedback by then.
Yeah, I mean,
Not for January, of course. I mean, for
so
April.
the thing is, like we have one of the most important rules here. We don't make decisions here. So we're not also, I would say, I personally, as one that approves, I did not make yet a decision if it should go for April or not. We're just discussing the topic. So the most important is we should now go back to the PR, put our thoughts there, because this meeting opened up a lot of different ideas in our heads. So let's just go back into PR and set ourselves a deadline like this week to actually like have a decision in the PR. What are the next steps, and like to not rush with decision making on the meetings, especially that we can release this video and somebody can jump into the recording. So yeah, to summarize, let's continue in the PR and let's talk there this week and see where we should go. Maybe Sergio tomorrow wakes up and has different opinion. Let's see when he will dream about it. So so yeah, but anyway, thanks a lot because it's 1 hour past and I know you wanted to finish 30 minutes
No, but
earlier.
this was great. I was so yes. So of course he came in and he was quite noisy, but apart from that, it was okay. And thank you so much for.
It was awesome. Thanks a lot for taking time to join us and talk to us.
Of course, and thanks so much for helping us with this.
Yeah.
Take care.
So folks, we should basically finish, but if there's anyone with super urgent topic that would like to mention now, anything super urgent that we should discuss? Nope. Okay, so I guess that we think on the release in the specification channel in Slack on 2.3 release, I mean. And yeah, just reminder, I mentioned that Jonas starts organizing this 3.0 release meeting. But yeah, the communication will go out to our social media as well when we set it up. Yeah, thank you so much for joining this year. I hope it's not your first and last time, because we just kicked off. And I see after the list of the participants that we really started working again.
Yeah, and great working, interacting with all of you, and look forward to more such changes and discussions. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, folks.
Bye. Bye. Ciao.
See ya.